Welcome in one and all to the latest episode of the Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game of the Jaguar Report of SI, and of course, my man, the champion himself, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country. Listen, I know there's no Jags football this coming weekend. I know I'll be at the Citrus Bowl covering LSU, FSU for this Sunday. So I will not be deprived of football, but there is football out there. It's just not Jaguar football. But enough about what I'm doing for the 3-point conversion. I am here to talk some Jaguars with my friend Travis. Now, of course, welcome in, Travis. Of course, I got to bid you a fair good morning as we're doing our first morning edition of the Duval Dive podcast. Let me get the simple one out of the way, man. We wrapped up preseason last week. Miami came to town over in Everbank Stadium there. I got to get used to that. It's not TIAA Bank Stadium anymore, whatever. First of all, kind of give me your thoughts on preseason as a whole and what you think of the final roster such that it was. I know we have some moments where the two of us look particularly smart based on some of the players retained, but your thoughts on preseason, my friend.
I mean, the preseason overall was obviously it was an incredible season, preseason, probably one of the best preseasons you've seen if you're a Jaguar fan since the late 90s. Like realistically,
was the last undefeated preseason outing, if you want to call like the final preseason here a victory. I know it ended prematurely and was technically suspended, but it is undefeated technically. There's not a loss levied.
That's a fair point. 97 was the last undefeated season, and I'm not even really focused on the record because, you can be a 2-1 or whatever, maybe 2-2 previously when there was 4 preseason games team, and still be an incredible, preseason for your starters and your depth and et cetera. The final score a lot of the time doesn't matter, as you've mentioned a few times on the Jaguar Report. But I will say,
anyway, it's a whole lot of fun and the points don't matter. Yes, thank you, Travis.
Right, but I will say at the end of all of it, like I've not seen as exciting of a preseason where I care about who's my depth pieces. I actually care enough to keep watching in the third quarter and the fourth quarter because we have this exciting young quarterback and this exciting depth, at receiver that I'm really wanting to pay attention to late in the third quarter when they're running routes against insurance agents and future mailmen. Like it is awesome. It's an awesome situation to just be able to watch the game and actually care even when the score doesn't even matter. Like that's been overall what it's been like this preseason. And the only real thing that I can say of concern within that preseason just happened to be the injuries because we just hadn't seen that all up last year being such a healthy team.
Yeah, generally speaking, other than, of course, the whole James Robinson situation, which they overcame with Travis Etienne stepping up last year, for sure. Too. By the way, speaking of things that showed out, props to my guy Drew Willingham noticing our adoption of the background that we're rocking here on the Duval Dive. And listen, shouts to Drew Willingham and Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real. To be awesome. We appreciate your support. Check them out. If you aren't checking them out through that YouTube page, you could always, of course, check us out on the pod afterward on Spotify through the Student of the Game podcast channel there, and wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, you can check us out through A7B and Sports Facebook page, Student of the Game Facebook page, and the Huddle Up podcast YouTube channel, as well as my Twitch and Twitter streams at the SOTG. So enough with that housekeeping over there. I remember you and I were talking big about Tim Jones. He made the final, and my pounding the table that you can't coach size I'm not going to say it got Jacob Harris on the practice squad, but at least somebody appears to be in agreement with me. You mentioned the receiver core being something that I'm impressed with too. I talked to Jacob Harris himself after the final preseason game, and the way that these guys worked together is they all knew they had a special group in there And they all were trying to help each other as best as possible so they could show out to even hit the waiver, possibly the waiver wire and get picked up somewhere.
Right.
Because they understand the reality that it's a business and not everybody's going to make it. So to hear these guys work together to help themselves ball out and look as good as possible so that everybody at least gets a job somewhere, if not there. And listen, this is a harsh environment. Even Coach Peterson's kid got cut, so
yeah. I'm sure he spent one night on the couch. And then they signed him to the practice squad the next day, and everything's all right. Everything's all good in the household. He has his seat at the top of the table, set again. So good job, Dougie. I'm happy your household's still stable.
Thanksgiving will not be awkward as it could have been. That's right. I agree with that, Travis. But with all that in mind, what's a move that you feel like there's a lot of, how you say, backlash to? That's a little bit of an overreaction.
Well, that's the fun part about this, is because a lot of these moves, if I want to be real about this, a lot of these moves were shocking. A lot of these moves were probably overreacted to, and we can say that now because we're looking at this with hindsight. Obviously, we know who was signed, to the practice squad. Nearly everyone. That most of these players that we thought would have been picked up and probably should have been picked up weren't. And so the Jaguars kind of had their pick of the litter in this case. But Nathan Work, obviously, we all knew that there was a good chance that it was literally a coin flip, 50-50, whether or not he was going to be, released, or whether or not they were going to be able to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster. They went the 2 quarterback roster way, and everyone, and probably nearly every Jag fan, thought that there was a high probability of him getting, picked up by another team, or at least, or if not picked up by another team, at least choosing to go to a practice squad for another squad. Like, at that point, he does have his pick of the litter. We know that when he originally signed back in January, that he had 12 teams interested in him at that time. I believe it was 8 of them had already offered him a contract, and he chose the Jaguars for that opportunity to compete. So the real question at that point was whether or not he got a true chance to compete, like whether or not that was a true competition versus him just having the opportunity to play. Obviously, he chose to come back onto the Jaguars practice squad, but a lot of fans didn't like it originally, and now they probably love it because guess what? We got the best of both worlds. We got that guy on our practice squad and probably first dibs in case he does get an offer to go into someone else's active roster. We have that opportunity to add him as third quarterback at that time. And he's under Dougie P with maybe up to a year to get that practice and get that acclimation to the offense. Like, it really is the best of all chances at that point. It's the best of all worlds.
And let's add another winner to the scenario, Travis Holmes, in the form of Rourke himself. I think it was you that tweeted out the salary increase just by being on the practice squad versus playing in the CFL. So really, everybody is winning here. And listen, you're coming to see a lot of that in this preseason for the Jaguars this season. But Travis, let's go ahead and get into this. This past week on the Student of the Game podcast, the AFC South previews took place. And if you want to see the article I wrote for the division, you can check that out on Monday on the 3-Point Conversion, 3pointconversion.com. Look up the title of the preview will be Duvals and Don'ts. I wonder who you think I'm favoring to win the division, Travis Holmes. Now, listen.
Yeah.
And we'll start out talking about the Jags because the name of this particular show is the Duval Dive. Okay, we're not going to start out talking about the Titans here. Okay, but I did want to go through. I had John Shipley of the Jaguar Report on the show. Talk a lot about what he liked about the Jags, what he did there. Go ahead and check that out at your convenience if you want to see that and the rest of the predictions on that show from a talented panel of guests from all 4 teams in the division. But in particular, the thing I want to touch on. See, we've seen so much offense this preseason, I'm brainwashed. The thing we want to touch on there is Shipley's 13-4 record prediction for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I remember, and your opinion may have changed a bit, Travis. I'm not trying to here to tell you that you're, this isn't, this team makes me drink, Travis, we're talking to right now.
This
I'm
is
fairly
not.
certain. This is not that. Not yet, anyways. And if things go according to plan, I assume they aren't. But I have the Jaguars schedule pulled up with me here. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you this, buddy. And I said it to Shipley that night. 13-4 seems tall for me. I'm just going to ask you before we get into it. Does it feel tall
Mhm.
for you as well?
Yes. So you're funny. It's what I've had this conversation with a few different people, and I've tried to make sure I'm fair and balanced in this analysis. Historically, I am the most pessimistic Jaguar fan probably that I know. And that's because I've been beat down over this past, 10 to 12 years of mediocrity and, overhyping in the offseason, that whole song and dance that many Jaguar fans are accustomed to. So
Hey,
I say all that to say, even in my most pessimistic viewpoint of this team, I still see them as a double-digit win team. Like, I feel like if they get 9 wins, it is probably a failure of a season, and they could probably still make the playoffs with that record. I mean, if 9-8, if they go 4-2 in conference.
now, if they go
Um,
9-8 and make it to the AFC South, you're willing to amend your statement? Like, let's
I'm
be
calling
clear.
it. I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm saying what it is. Like,
Yeah,
hey, with this schedule, unless there are serious injuries, which is possible, as we've already seen this
right.
preseason, like
Barring injury, let's get that out of the way.
barring that, discounting that, if there are not any serious, like a serious spread of injuries on this team, I don't know how you don't get 10 wins with this schedule. And that's my pessimistic view. So I don't blame John for saying, hey, man, 13 wins is what I'm seeing. I do feel like that's a tall order for a young team, and this is still a young team. Let's not forget that streak at the end of the season does not change what happened at the start of the season. Also, this is a team that still can have those ups and downs, as we even saw in the preseason with those random fumbles from your rookie running back or your random interception for Trevor that's early in the game and then he gets over it. Those things will still happen, and we have to acknowledge that. And those can be the differences in those tight games. So yeah, 13 wins is a tall order. I'm putting it around that 10-11 mark, and I think that's reasonable.
So I think we just broke the internet because during the AFC South preview edition of the Student of the Game, I myself had 10 wins for Jacksonville Jaguars.
Let's go.
So with all that in mind, I'll say this too. And you were talking. I'm glad you brought up the end of that streak last year, and then how it might be set up for a different team this year. I actually talked with Christian Kirk after
Mm.
the Jaguars game there at Everbank, and here's kind of what he said about that whole
And one
vibe.
last thing, you guys are kind of last year. It was it was always the Jags. You and I talked about that at the end of the year last year and how you guys would come back. Now there's a lot of talk, and I know talk is just talk, but that the Jags are kind of favored in the AFC South, kind of changing the element of it was always the Jags to be a bit more of a statement of confidence. What is it? Is that kind of the message you're getting together with this team? What's kind of the attitude of this team heading into Week 1?
Honestly, we're flushing anything that happened last year, and we're just managing our expectations for ourselves. Now coming into a weekly basis, if we win a game, that's what we're supposed to do. That's going to be the expectation. So, for us, it's just taking it 1 week at a time, not looking too far ahead, and just maximizing our potential as a team.
So, to Christian Kirk's credit, he's one of those guys. I'm not going to call it coach speak because there is
Mm.
substance there, but he's going to use choice words. He's not going to talk with the confidence that one would expect a receiver to have. And hey, that's what you expect from a vet like
Oh
Christian
no.
Kirk to nail
Oh,
it.
no, absolutely. That's my guy, and he's not going to give anyone any kind of bulletin board material. He's smart about that piece of it.
However, if I may, there is substance there, right? That part he's talking about the confidence. Granted, he doesn't reference Thanos like I do, and it was always the Jags becoming a statement of inevitability. But he mentions the confidence. He mentions the raised expectation, and that's the attitude you have to have. In
Mhm.
plucky down 27 points ain't going to cut it anymore. All right. There is no more Jocko Willick. Hey, we're down 27. Good. That's not how they want to approach games. I think fast start is something that's in this team's head. And frankly, if I'm Doug Peterson, I'm actually a little bit distressed at what happened at the end of that first drive. Yeah, I get it. It's preseason. Yeah, thank goodness that Tank Bigsby, who's going to make Kyle look like a big idiot for how good he's going to play in 2023, made the mistake when it didn't count. God bless it. But at the end of the day, I know as a coach, I would have wanted that drive to end the way that it should have, with that fast start, so I can tap on the bullet board. Hey, guys, it looks like that. Okay. But, I mean, the statement of confidence and how they should approach, you have to agree with what Kirk said there, right?
I think we do, and that's the greatest part about that statement, is that they actually that they really believe it. Like, they believe it, and they have those expectations for themselves as this team. Now, again, there is still that question of, should that be the expectations when they're playing against starters, because we still haven't seen it.
Right.
And as it stinks to say, they played against starters for Miami, but they didn't play against starters as far as the run game is concerned, as
All
far as
starters, right.
Yeah, right. All the starters, as far as the
Christian
two interior
Wilkins
linemen.
Yeah, exactly. Christian Wilkins missing matters. That's a Pro Bowl caliber dude, right? I don't think anybody has illusions otherwise.
They were missing their top 2 interior defensive linemen, and we ran down their throats. Let's just call a spade a spade. So, and we really want to see what we have in us, and I believe everyone else, the players themselves, have that same thought process. They have that expectation of themselves, and they probably really wanted to see those points, just to say, like, to your point, hey, this is what it looks like, and that's what we want every time. That's how we start a game, and so we can finish it out and show them that way. But they haven't seen it yet, and that is, to everyone's point, I should say, that's a concern. You want to see it. You want to see them open those games, because they only got those 2 drives, and you're going to want to see them close those games out with that lead, instead of having to have those comebacks, because that's not going to last long term in the NFL. Sure.
So speaking of agreement, Travis Holmes, Drew Willingham coming in the comments, 10 and 11 wins is respectable, Travis. I agree with that prediction. Drew Willingham signing off here too. By the way, this statement alone, in tribute to "This Team Makes Me Drink" t-shirt, his response is this: the teams that make you drink the entire NFC East. Now, based on that statement alone, Travis Holmes, can you guess for what team Drew Willingham follows?
Drew feels like a Giants fan. I don't know.
That's very close. I can see why. How
is it the Eagles?
How would the Eagles make anyone drink this past
I don't know. Year? I'm not this past year. I'm trying to figure out.
Trash team in that division, and you'll get it.
The most trash team in the NFC. Yeah, NFC East has got to be the Commanders right now.
The Red Tails, absolutely right. And
Red Tails. I'm sorry. Yes. I mean, your mama named you Redskins, and I can't even call you that no more. I don't know. I'm losing track of this, man. All right, yes.
Is that the Cassius Clay defense you just used?
No, man. That's the Coming to America. Your mama named you Cletus, so I'm gonna call you Cletus. But yeah.
There you go. I'm gonna call him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. I get it. By the way, Drew also hands you another subtle hint. Take a look at the Surtoba logo in the upper right hand corner there. That's all you need. The Red Tails is, Commanders, such as they are. So that's probably why that team makes them drink, considering the rest are all, at least being predicted to at least fight for the playoffs. So, of course, I've seen some people flying off the handle trying to convince me that Sam Howell can make this team a playoff team. But this isn't an NFC East show. You could watch that on the NFC East preview of the Student of the Game. Bing! Anyways, with that in mind, Travis, we've talked about, we both see 10 wins for this squad. Let's go ahead and jump through the schedule as we go here to find out where we think the Jags might struggle. Now, what I find interesting, let me ask this question. The opening game is going to be them going to Indianapolis to do battle with the Colts. Currently, I believe 0-9 are the Jags in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
If this isn't the opportunity to break the streak, I don't know what is.
This has got to be it, but you can never say never in the NFL, and that's what always stinks. Is I think everybody and their mama gonna put money on the Jaguars to win this game, even if it's in Indy. But it's still the NFL. We all thought the same thing for Houston last year, And somehow, some way, that game just looks weird enough, and it works out weird enough, and you think they should be up 14 points, but they're only up 3, and then there's the turnovers, and then these things happen. So I say all that to say, yes, they absolutely better win this game. However, we've seen that before. It's the NFL, and that spread, that the difference between a bad team and a good team can truly be week to week if there's just a wrong matchup. And historically, this has been one of those wrong matchups for us.
And just for the sake of conversation, I do have the Jaguars sweeping the Colts, but again, barring the football gods coming in with what happened was, as the Jags do, I got a Colts sweep there too. So when we come across the Colts later in the schedule, that's how that'll probably go. I'm going to safely put the home opener against the Chiefs as a probable L, but you never know. They may. The Chiefs have started slow in other seasons past. That should be an interesting game, considering the vengeance vibe and how emotional the Jags can play at times. I have them hosting the Texans. I have them splitting the Texans this year, Travis. What say you?
I said that's historically what's going to happen. And and against that team, yes, I see them splitting and probably winning at home, losing away, just sort of like that Indy situation.
Yeah, I agree. By the time they play the Texans later in the calendar, CJ Stroud would have had more time to get comfortable. The receiver connection would have only improved. The Texans in this past offseason, let's say only the top 2 picks overall at 2 and 3 because they traded up with Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. Let's say that's all that works out. They secured 2 of the most important pieces on the field as improvements. And oh, by the way, they secure Laramie Tunsil at a tackle to secure one of the third. So, if in the offseason you can get better at 3 important spots, you're looking better as a team are the Texans. So, we'll leave that at that. After that, they head to London. Travis, I see them going 2-0 in London. And yes, I'm including the Bills because not only have the Jags done well against the Bills in the past, the Jags are more comfortable in London than the Bills would be. What say you?
We have the Bills number for the most part. And we just do. We hold them to a low amount of points no matter what our defense looks like when we're playing them. And that's whether it's the Tyrod Taylor Bills or whether it's the Josh Allen Bills. For whatever reason, we are just a bad matchup to them, just like there are certain teams that are bad matchups to us. Historically, again, the Colts and the Titans. It's just one of those things that stinks, or us against the Steelers, for that matter. We're just a bad matchup for them no matter what our team looks like. So I agree with you. I think we're going to go 2-0 in London, and I think we're going to have that advantage. I'm very thankful to the NFL schedule making gods for allowing that 2-week spread in London, as much as some Jack fans didn't like it at first.
Yeah, and I get that too. So based on that alone, after the second Colts game there too on October 15th, we just put this team at 5-1.
Yeah.
And just like that, right? However, on Thursday, they will head into the Bayou of the Superdome to battle the Saints on Thursday night. That game's interesting. Today, I'm going to call it a Jaguars win, but the Saints leaning more as a defensive team than ever before, and it being a Thursday night game. I can see them dropping that one. What say you?
I have them as a win, but it's one of those coin flip games that I really do feel weird about. Just again, calling it like it is, that because of the way that they play defense, they're a lot more like those, Titan teams, a lot more like those Steelers and Ravens, those teams that are going to keep their offense with around 20 to 21 points. And when those games happen like that, it just comes down to ball control, who doesn't turn the ball over, things of that nature. So to your point, yeah, it can be one of those coin flip games that you hope you can come away with a hard-fought victory, but you never know. We may change our tune by week 6, week 7.
Yeah, what's interesting here, I see Drew Willingham telling us 4-2, but he says it's not because of the Bills, but the potential 6 or 7 losses on the season being against the Colts, because anything can happen in the NFL. In other words, he's putting what happened was in the hands of the shoe. I'm not mad at it. I'm not feeling it this year. There are other years where I'm like, oh yeah, totally. This is not that one. But like Drew said eloquently, anything can happen in the NFL. Let's take it beyond that Thursday night. It would be the Jags at that point going to Pittsburgh. Travis, I have that as an L. I know that they've been battling well lately, but with the offensive line being what it is, I see them having trouble repelling TJ Watt and company in that front, and they're going to have problems moving the football. I think it sounds like you agree with that too.
I had that, and that's weird because again, they're at that point we already had them at 6-1, I believe, and for Jaguar fans starting off 6-1, that is just an incredible start to the season. However, again, as I said earlier, there's going to be those ups and down games that you feel like they should win, that they're just not, because those are good defenses that are going to keep that score low. Pittsburgh is absolutely one of those well-coached teams that are absolutely that they're in that bucket. Pittsburgh, I think, will walk away with that victory in a low-scoring game.
And I feel like Pittsburgh's being slipped on in overall, too. I think they're a playoff team no matter what the national media says. It would not be the first time I agreed with, and correctly, opposite of the lamestream media. Let's keep it rolling, Travis. We have, let's see, we got the Steelers. The week after that, what a tough pairing coming back home to face the 49ers after TJ Watt. Listen, I don't care what their quarterback situation is. This is another game where the best chance for victory is if the Niners hit an injury spell like they did last year. That's the only thing in my mind that makes this unpredictable. If you could keep the Jags on the ground, Dougie P's coaching strategies tend to waver some. We have seen that before with other teams. I got the Niners winning it here. Call me a homer if you want. What say you?
I got the Niners winning also. And again, best case scenario. What's
disagreeing? What's
going
on?
My problem is my best case scenario is that this team wins 13 to 14 games. That is the best case scenario, and I can absolutely see it. And that's the reason, again, I go back to John's point earlier. Yeah, this could absolutely be 13 wins. However, some injuries somewhere are going to happen. There's no way they were going to lead the NFL in injuries and games missed from your starters due to injury, again, 2 years in a row. That's what happened last year, and we've already started the season off with showing injuries on the offensive line and literally no depth at defensive end. I'm not crazy. I have to acknowledge this. So because this is football, you're going to lose games that you should win. You're going to win games that you should have lost. Hey, I have them going 0-2 versus the Steelers and the 49ers. That's just what I have. I'm sorry. It's the middle of the season. It's right at that time that you might just hit a dip.
And, as we're closing in on time here to finish it out here, what I will say is, I'll ask this: 1-1 with the Titans this year. That's where you would put that, right?
Yep. Surely.
Okay. That tracks for me too. We said 1-1 the Texans, so we could skip that. This basically leads us to what I think is the toughest stretch of schedule, leading in at least in the back half of the year here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I correct you? I do apologize. You had them 1-1 against the Texans. I actually have them. I have them 2-0 against the Texans. So we do differ on that one.
That's interesting. Okay. Fair enough. That would be nice to see, but yeah, I have them splitting with the Texans. I think the Texans are a little feisty this year. I think they're going to surprise some people. I have them at 7 wins. You could check the rest of my team's picks on the AFC South preview of the student of the game. Bing! Anyways, this particular stretch, though, Bengals, Browns, Ravens. Travis, 2-1 here would be awesome. Something tells me you got 1-2.
I do. I have them losing against the Bengals, losing against the Browns, and beating the Ravens, because we always have the Ravens number. Doesn't matter if it's fluky, doesn't matter if it's weird. It just always happens. And
their injury status too is I think going to be the biggest factor.
Also fair. Yeah. Also fair. But and again, the Browns are one of those teams where I thought Deshaun Watson just looked really weird and rusty last year, but I don't think that that's going to be the case based on what you're hearing anyways. And if he's just an average quarterback with that team, that offense, that defense, that the way that they're able to run the ball, it's one of those just feisty teams like the Steelers that I think we're going to struggle with later in the season. I think we may be hitting our peak at the right time. I just think it starts later in the season, a lot like last year.
And final 2 games outside of the AFC South, I think they're 2-0, though the Panthers might be frisky. Bucks, Panthers, Bucks in Tampa on Christmas Eve. I have that 2-0 with that pairing as well.
We do agree.
There you go. So with that in mind, that'll wrap up this edition of the Duval Dive. We barely squeezed in the 30 minutes here. We might be a little
skip
over.
one.
No, what'd I skip?
The Titans, the last game of the season.
You're not paying attention. I said the last two outside of the AFC South because we already said that they would split.
Oh,
and now
dang
we're
it. So we're both in agreement that they're going to lose against the Titans in the last game of the season because they're sitting their starters.
Basically.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, Travis, tell the people where you can be found, my guy.
Well, I can be found on all the socials. Travis D. Holmes, obviously on Twitter, Threads, Facebook, you name it.
It's Twitter.
Yeah. Your mama called you Twitter. I'm gonna name you Twitter. All right, cool. Yes. You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writings on bitcatcountry.com. And you can find me on the South Florida Tribune's Inside the Pigskin on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. I'm a panelist on that podcast, and you can also find me every week on the Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast.
Bam, make sure you check that out if you don't do it live, wherever you consume your podcast. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Check out my writings with the Black and Gold banneret covering UCF and the 3-point conversion, along with the Jaguar report covering various things, Jaguars and NFL. Also, check me out for the 3-point conversion this Sunday, covering the Citrus Bowl kickoff, LSU versus FSU. It's going to be a pretty big game, Travis. Heisman Trophy candidates, all that. Pretty good time. Pretty good time. Can't front on that.
I do hope you enjoy yourself.
I'm going to try. Twist my arm. And of course, the Student of the Game podcast, which goes live on Wednesday at 8:40 p.m. We will have the simulcast with me and the Huddle Up podcast crew. It's going to be a great time. I'm going to talk trash on EJ Christian. Bing! I'm assuming that because at some point he makes one of his corporate tool-like picks. It is what he does. But yes, for Big Cat Country's Travis Holmes, I am Kyle Nash of the Jaguar Report, the student of the game. And until next time, everyone, class and dismissed.